Welcome to Plain Talk, where before we started recording, Chad's asking me if I was sick. I am. If my voice sounds weird, I have been fighting a sore throat for like a week and a half or 2 weeks. It's kind of making my voice sound very low. Like I feel like I should maybe drop an album or something. Right?
It's the most masculine you ever sounded for.
Yeah, that's probably true. Joining us on this episode is Representative Michelle Strinden, who is also on the ticket on Kelly Armstrong's gubernatorial ticket, running for lieutenant governor. Representative Strinden, how are you?
I'm terrific this morning. It's so nice to be with you, Rob and Chad. Thanks for having me.
Why would anybody want to be lieutenant governor? I'm kidding. That's a terrible joke. And I love making that joke because I heard a great joke, and I think it was from Lloyd Omdahl, who the recently departed Lloyd Omdahl, who used to make a joke all the time, who was lieutenant governor, by the way, at one point. He used to make a joke that lieutenant governors don't look out the window in the morning so that they have something to do in the afternoon, which isn't true. Our lieutenant governor is busy, but why did when Kelly came? I'm assuming he came to you and offered to be on the ticket. What attracted you to that?
Yes, he certainly did, and obviously, I was just so humbled by that, and really for me, I've had experience these last 5 years working in the North Dakota Legislature, advancing good public policy, and I see this as an opportunity to come along someone I extremely admire and respect. I really just feel extremely strongly that Kelly is the right man for the job for the governor's office. And when he asked me, I really considered it along with my family. And, it's just an opportunity for me to continue to advance good policy for the state I love. And I couldn't ask for a better person to do that alongside with than Kelly.
Michelle, obviously, with the last name of Strinden, you come from a family, or at least married into a family of folks that are involved in politics. Can you tell people who are listening who maybe don't know much about your background? Obviously been a state lawmaker, but just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you bring to this race.
Well, thanks for that question, Chad. Yes, I am extremely proud of my husband's father my husband is Tom Strinden. My father-in-law is Earl Strinden, who had over 20 years in the legislature, served his constituents in Grand Forks, and then became majority leader and was in that role for 13 distinguished years in the House chamber. And one of the things, I think my father-in-law, he reminds me so much of Kelly in terms of his work ethic and his just true love and love and passion to serve the state of North Dakota. I see so many similarities in the two of them. And Earl was just a champion for the people of North Dakota. And it had so much admiration and respect for his time. So many people remember him. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he has left a great legacy for the state.
One of the things about, obviously you've served in the legislature, so you're not a newcomer to campaigning and all of this. But one of the things, and certainly in this race, we've seen it get pretty ugly, with some of the ads and stuff that are running and some of the accusations being made. Not a lot on the running mates, but just as a person, I've always wondered about that. And obviously I get some of it too, I guess. I certainly get nasty emails and things sometimes, or people looking into my personal life. But does that give you any trepidation at all, like moving up into that spotlight and thinking, boy, there's people are really going to put me through the ringer here?
Yeah, I think it would be, I think absolutely that is something that, comes with the job of politics, obviously. One of the things I think that I pride myself on, and I think many people might agree that know me, is I tend to listen more than I talk. I use an 80-20% rule. So, and I'm much more comfortable in those one-on-one conversations, building relationships, really working behind the scenes. So coming into the spotlight is a bit uncomfortable for me. I won't lie about that. However, I really just try to do my job to the best degree that I can with integrity and character. Those are things that I feel extremely important, that are important to do the job the way that the people of North Dakota deserve. And it's what I've tried to do the last 5 years. It's what I will continue to try to do as I serve alongside Kelly, if we're so fortunate to continue. And, as I look at some of the things that have happened in the last few weeks, it just really saddens me to see innocent people re-victimized for political gain. And I just think that's there's just no place for that in our state. So it's unfortunate.
Representative Strinden, I've managed the governor's campaign. I've advised other governor's campaigns in a previous life when I worked on politics directly. One of the things I always found difficult is, the lieutenant governor candidate comes in after the governor's candidate sort of been established. They have their team set. And how do you properly integrate the lieutenant governor candidate into the campaign? So have you found, how has Kelly and his team sort of brought you in the decision-making process, how to properly use your skills on the campaign trail? How's that transition been?
Well, one of the things I've been so impressed with is the team that Kelly has assembled. He has just the most professional, wonderful people around him, and they have welcomed me. They have just really helped me to jump on board. We've been through all kinds of different events throughout the state. I've been to Devil's Lake with Kelly. We've been to Dickinson. I'm going to Larimore, Valley City. So, there's just really been a great grassroots support for our campaign. And his team has really come alongside me and included me. And I just couldn't be more grateful and thankful. It's really fun, actually, to see a statewide campaign like this and be a part of it. Of course, it's different from the campaigns that I've been used to running in the past, just myself and my son as my campaign manager. So this is a bit more involved, but it's been great. And I can't wait to continue. Kelly is one of the hardest working people I've had the pleasure to work alongside. So we're going to push hard and run this race to the end.
Wisecracks from smart aleck reporters aside, the lieutenant governor does have some duties. Among them is sitting on the state investment board, where we have seen some controversy, recently. And in fact, your potential opponents, should you advance past the primary, Democratic nominee Merrill Pepcorn, presumptive nominee Merrill Pepcorn, and his lieutenant governor candidate Patrick Hart were just at the Capitol this week talking about legacy fund investments. And some of the things they were talking about are, concerns about foreign investments, concerns about how the legacy fund's going to be used. Now, the lieutenant governor has a role in helping to shape some of that policy. Do you have any thoughts? Because there have been concerns even as well about the state investment board maybe being a little too willing to acquiesce to the demands of certain investment managers and stuff, that are contractors essentially that have been hired to help us manage those funds. Can you give us some of your thoughts on that, about North Dakota, being invested in China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or some of these places?
Yeah, I would say that is a concern of mine as well. And I know Kelly has commented on that as well. And I think that as we approach the legacy fund, obviously that is something that the legislature dealt with last session, and it was presented to us. And I think transparency, obviously, this is something that Kelly has mentioned frequently. We need to be extremely transparent about where those funds are located. And one of the things Kelly's mentioned many times is that the country of Norway has a similar fund and investment processes that are extremely transparent and up for everyone to see. You shouldn't have to file an open records, request to see where our monies are being invested in this regard. And so I would be very much looking to improve that for the people of North Dakota. Absolutely.
Representative Strindon, Rob mentioned one of the formal duties of the lieutenant governor, but it seems to me every lieutenant governor sort of has a portfolio that they work on once they get in. The conversations I've had with Kelly, and it's based on common sense, your background as a professional educator, that you will be involved in education policy moving forward. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a few different things. Early or late last month, some rankings came out on K through 12 teacher salaries. We went from 33rd to 37th. We had the lowest increase of anywhere in the country, 0.76%. There's an article in the North Dakota Monitor yesterday where they interviewed a couple of teachers who've left the profession. One had mentioned the North Dakota Legislature and them getting, sort of a little too hands-on what's going on in individual schools as one of the reasons they're leaving. I also met with a group of teachers and paras yesterday in Western North Dakota, and they were describing some of the challenges they have in their schools around behavioral health, multi-language students, where you basically have to hire a para who's an interpreter. And sometimes I think the North Dakota Legislature doesn't understand the big challenges that are going on in our schools. It's not the same as it was 20 and 30 years ago. What would you do as lieutenant governor to make sure that we're investing in our schools in a way to make sure they have the things that they need and they're spending the money wisely, quite frankly, and on the things that are most important? So can you just sort of talk about your vision for public education as we're moving forward?
Thanks for the question, Chad. Yes, education is something I am passionate about and have worked in the last 5 years, really promoting, primarily really digging into advancing literacy and improving reading proficiency. That's something that I have been working on for the last 5 years. But beyond that, I saw the article that you mentioned, Chad, and I think, the governor has formed a task force relating to retention and recruitment of teachers. And I think one of the things that I would really like to do is to, come alongside our teachers in the classroom. They're facing more challenges today than ever before. And even more so, I think, since, the COVID pandemic, when you listen to teachers talk about their experiences in the classroom, they are struggling. And so often what's happening, I think, is we're losing teachers around that 10-year mark, it seems. So we're getting teachers in, they're getting their experience under their belt. And then when they get to, that critical point where they're really in their stride as educators, we're losing them. And that's extremely concerning. I had the, looking back, I really respect Governor Colvin's work in this area. He really worked to improve those types of concerns that our teachers have within the classrooms, and he tackled teacher pay head on. That was something that he saw as an issue that he got behind and supported. And we do need to make sure that our teachers are supported in the classroom, that they have enough help in terms of their paras, in terms of the leadership in their buildings. We need to come alongside our teachers, not only in our public schools, but our private schools as well. And education is something that I have a passion for and will continue to work to improve public policy around that.
When it comes to, you were obviously in the legislature during, you're still, a lawmaker, I'm assuming. If you're elected, there's a vacancy that'll need to be filled. But one of the things is one of the complaints, obviously, and I think it's highlighted in that article that Chad referenced, and then also, it's certainly been highlighted elsewhere. I've written about it, which is, that feeling, particularly on cultural issues, where you have the legislature sort of reaching down and I think reacting to controversies that are getting a lot of attention on cable news or social media or what have you, regardless of whether or not they may be happening or may be problematic here in North Dakota. What was your approach to that as a lawmaker, and what are your thoughts on that? Joining the executive branch and thinking about, how do we balance these cultural concerns with our need to let good teachers do their jobs in the classroom?
Well, one of the things is that our schools work best because they are locally controlled, and I completely support the local school boards that are in charge of really those policies around their school buildings. And the types of issues that the Fargo Public School District are facing are very, very different than the types of issues that are facing our rural schools. So we need to really be mindful that the best decisions are made closest to the students and the teachers and their families. Every child learns differently. Every child and their families are, I really, really want to promote and empower parental involvement. I want to engage families, and there's just differences across the state. And so for the state, there's certainly a place for, obviously, the legislature as it relates to good policy. That's something that I did, and I feel I've advanced the ball in terms of literacy. And there's things certainly that can be done at the state level, but local control is the proper place for most decisions that are closest to the kids and the teachers and their parents.
Michelle, I'm going to have one more question on education, then we can move on to something else. But at the state GOP convention where you and Kelly were endorsed, the gentleman who was endorsed for the Department of Public Instruction over Kirsten Baszler, one of his seconding speeches was done by a guy named Charles Tuttle, who over and over and over said public schools are evil. Now, I think what's missing in this conversation about recruitment and retention is often teachers hear that. So this is a softball. Do you think our public schools are evil?
Absolutely not, Chad. No, they are not evil. I have a daughter in public school. I couldn't be more proud of her teachers and administrators. They are devoted public servants. I chair the children's cabinet, and yesterday we just had Russ Reel, who is the principal of Simley High, or Simley Junior High, middle school, I believe.
Yeah.
And I look at the work that he is doing, along with so many other amazing professionals in our school buildings across the state. And that's just a really unfortunate thing to say, because these are people that are committed, they are passionate to the future of the children of North Dakota. And I couldn't be more proud to come alongside them. Russ is I invited him to speak to our children's cabinet yesterday about the work that he's doing in his building, really advancing behavioral health policy in an integrated model. And he's really moving the ball in this area. He's coming alongside Sanford. He's, created, eliminated barriers that have been issues with regard to treating and helping students in the classroom with regard to behavioral health, like, creating a billing opportunity so that they can receive proper funding and support so that they can offer these types of services within their buildings. So really exciting things happening across the state. And I'm exceptionally proud of our educators.
Property taxes. It feels like we have to ask everybody running for the legislature, everybody running for statewide. Maybe not such an important question for the insurance commissioner, but pretty much everybody.
But I still think we should get Gottfried on the record about his opinion
on property taxes. Yeah, why not? It's tough, and also knowing, you're joining a ticket here, and the person at the top of the ticket is going to set the agenda for the administration. But you served in the legislature. You've heard from constituents about this. There is potentially, although they haven't turned in their signatures yet, but potentially there's a ballot measure to eliminate property taxes. It's going to be on the November ballot. What does our state do about this? How do we get to a point where people are satisfied? Because it seems the confounding thing is it's really a local issue, but it becomes a statewide issue because it's a problem in so many localities. How does the state handle this and get voters feeling satisfied that something is being done about this?
Yes, it's a problem. And one of the things Kelly and I hear about in every place we go is our voters and our citizens' concerns about property tax primarily. The legislature, we did take this issue up last session. We had the largest tax cut in the history of North Dakota. and we passed a 3-prong approach tackling property tax, income tax, and the homestead tax. And so whether or not the measure will be on the ballot in November and whether or not that's passed, this will be another session where obviously this is again front and center. We need to reform property tax. There's plenty of people out there that talk about income tax, but when Kelly and I are on the road, property tax is our citizens' number one concern. And so we will, I know, work together with our local subdivisions, our political subdivisions, obviously, our city commissioners, our park boards, our school boards. These are the places we need to come together. We need to build relationships to work on these issues. Obviously, I do not support the measure. I think that we obviously need to continue to lead these types of decisions at the local level. And it will be something our administration will tackle head on.
So, Michelle, as you were thinking about taking on this candidacy for lieutenant governor, did you think about how, you referenced earlier, you're a listener first, talker second. You've spent time on the education committee and then the appropriations committee most recently, sort of working the details of budgets and that kind of stuff. Did you think about the fact that you're going to miss that part of the job? Because as lieutenant governor, you obviously have a seat at the table, but it's not a seat at the conference committee table where you're making determinations on where dollars and cents are being spent.
Yes, that's going to be, the relationships are a big part of this job. And one of the things I think I'll miss the most, obviously, is the people and the friends that I've made. I'll certainly see them and I'll be in communication with them as we move policies that the governor, and our administration support forward. We need those relationships. And so that's really one of the things that I think I'm looking forward to the most is building on those relationships. Perhaps it'll be different. I won't be sitting next to my best friend, Bert Anderson, every day in my, human services resource division. But those friendships will enable me and help me to really move forward good policy for the people of North Dakota.
Well, if you're elected lieutenant governor, you're going to have to go over and hang out with those hosers in the Senate all the time.
Yes, it's one way to get into the Senate, Rob.
Yeah, there you go. You're gonna preside over the Senate, so you can gavel them down and do all sorts of fun stuff. That dynamic, it seemed like that was a struggle for the Burgum administration, and again, putting it in the context where the American system of government, which obviously, North Dakota state government emulates the division of powers at the federal level. Tension between the executive and legislative branches were built in. That's a given. It's how it's supposed to work. That being said, at times, I think it was noteworthy that there was acrimony between the legislature and Governor Burgum. I'm not telling you anything, again, having served in the House of Representatives, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It seems interesting to me that we're now going to have an executive branch, or we will, I guess, if you're successful ultimately in winning the election, we would have an executive branch where both the governor and the lieutenant governor are former lawmakers. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic? Do you think that'll be helpful?
I absolutely think it'll be helpful. One of the things I look forward to is, I've built relationships, and so has Kelly over the last, Kelly's time in the state legislature, in the Senate, and then again, now serving in Congress, obviously my time in the House and on Appropriations Committee. Those are those relationships that will help us to continue to build on policy. There is that nice and healthy tension between both of the branches of government. And I think that really only lends towards better policy. We have a 4-month session, and by the end of it, the thing that I like to tell my constituents in Fargo is that the process works. And we really do, at the end of the day, come to really, really good laws for the people of North Dakota, because we had 4 months where we're working on this, and it can be contentious at times. It can be difficult. And you need tenacity to move through pieces of legislation that, we have differences on. But that is the beauty of the process. That's how we come to the best results for the people. And I look forward to doing just that if we're so fortunate to continue.
Now, I have a real important question here. It's my understanding that your son plays hockey at the University of North Dakota. Is that true?
That is true.
Kelly Armstrong is a big UND guy.
Yes.
Should NDSU be nervous about the Armstrong-Strinded administration being too focused on the flagship university in the town of Grand Forks? As a UND grad, I'm fine with it.
Right. They have nothing to fear. I love NDSU. I love all of I was just actually meeting with President Cook last week. Had the opportunity to go visit with him about his concerns. There are some challenges right now, and I look forward to coming alongside NDSU and other, institutions of higher education across the state. We have a lot of work to do with regard to just preparing our children for the workforce of the future. And we have wonderful higher education institutions that are ready to do just that. And NDSU has a unique challenge right now with regard to the promise grants that are being, kind of rolled out in Minnesota. Their alumni has stepped up to the plate in an amazing way. And the state of North Dakota has also come alongside them in freezing tuition and doing some other things to position them for the future. So I love NDSU. I will advocate for them.
Well, cheering for UND's hockey team.
That too, of course.
As an NDSU dropout, I don't give a rip at all about the rivalry between the two schools. I would just rather us fund them all adequately and run them efficiently. That's what I care about. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Michelle.
Pleasure to be with you both. Thanks.
The cold cases you see at the Vault have captivated readers across our region for years. At the Vault podcast, our team of professional reporters takes you further into those stories with new interviews from family members, investigators, and experts. Check out The Vault at inforum.com/The Vault and subscribe to The Vault wherever you find your podcasts.
Welcome back. Just finished up our interview with Representative Michelle Strinden, who is also obviously running for lieutenant governor on the ticket with Kelly Armstrong. And Chad, you were saying, while we broke there for a moment, that she's a strong pick for lieutenant governor. And I feel the same way, because it's such a unique role in that, by definition, we're not electing the lieutenant governor, we're electing the governor. The lieutenant governor is the spare, basically. But there is an important role there, but the person kind of has to know their role. And I think she knows the role. She's going to know the role very well.
Yeah, she's exceptionally impressive. She's a great legislator. But also, like, during the interview, really was complimenting Kelly and making sure that it was about the Armstrong administration, wasn't about Michelle Strinden as lieutenant governor. I was really impressed by her interview. I thought she did a really nice job for somebody who clearly does not like being in the spotlight, which is also interesting.
Yeah. Although also maybe good if you're the lieutenant governor, right? Because she's going to be doing a lot of ribbon cuttings and stuff like that. that aren't exactly high profile.
Groundbreaking. She'll have a bunch of shovels.
Oh, so many shovels. They need to come up with a new prop for groundbreaking. I don't know what that is. If I did a groundbreaking, I want to be in the backhoe. I want to be moving some dirt or something. That's what I'd want.
With that raspy masculine voice.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to know what I'm doing with it, but I would like to do it. Listen to this segue that I'm going to do. This is why I'm a professional. Speaking of moving dirt, let's talk about the coal industry, right? Oh, that was so smooth.
That was awesome.
It
was so impressive, Rob.
Yeah. I don't feel good. We're grading on a scale here. Grading on a curve.
30 tons of coal per year is moved, let alone all the hundreds of feet on top of that of dirt.
Jason Bohrer, bringing the facts right off. Jason Bohrer is the president of the Lignite Energy Council. He's also the chair of the Lignite PAC. Am I understanding that right? Which is sort of the the political arm of the North Dakota coal industry. Jason, welcome. Happy to have you on.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
You know, I wanted to have you on because your industry has become kind of a hot topic in North Dakota's Republican House primary, and not for unwarranted reasons. It's a very important industry for our state. What was really interesting is that there was a video put out, and to set this up, if you don't know what Cameo is, it's actually a service through which you can pay a celebrity to record a greeting or record like a birthday message or something, or happy retirement or something like that. I actually got one for my daughter a couple years ago. She really liked The Office, and we paid Oscar. We did Oscar, and he recorded a message for Layla for her birthday, and it was a lot of fun. Like it was really cool. Rick Becker, who is currently running for the United States House, paid to record a video with Dylan Mulvaney, who is a internet personality, social media personality. Also, she's trans. It is a trans rights proponent, and was at the center, if you didn't know, of the Bud Light controversy. It was Bud Light choosing to use Dylan Mulvaney as a brand ambassador, I think is the term for it, that set off boycotts and all sorts of consternation among a certain faction of the American public. Rick Becker has paid for a cameo from Dylan Mulvaney, and in the cameo kind of had Dylan, obviously not letting Dylan Mulvaney understand that she's talking about a United States House candidate, but sort of congratulate Julie on all her work in favor of the green agenda and everything. And then in Becker's social media message, because he posted this on Twitter, and in his message, he goes on to accuse Fedorchak of being, this is what he wrote. He basically, he jokingly, had the Mulvaney tweet, and then he said this: "What's not a laughing matter is how time and again Julie Fedorchak placed radical green energy proposals above the coal industry here in North Dakota. In contrast, I recently received the endorsement of co-chairman of the Congressional Coal Caucus because of my commitment to the coal industry." Now, Jason, I guess I wanted to bring you on just to clarify some of this. I mean, from your perspective, is Julie Fedorchak been putting a radical green energy agenda above the coal industry in North Dakota, do you believe?
Never. That is a statement that I can't even wrap my head around, because Julie has consistently fought for the coal industry in North Dakota and the nation. And her work has allowed us to enter into a broader arrangement of partnerships to increase our influence with regional transmission organizations. And her testimony before the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee has been instrumental in raising the awareness of the critical challenges regarding reliability that we are facing right now. She has absolutely been a leader in support of the coal industry in North Dakota. I don't understand where that statement comes from.
I just want to go on record and say this whole cameo thing is one of the stupidest things I've seen in North Dakota politics in a long time. And I mean, it continues to show to me that Rick Becker is not a serious candidate or a serious lawmaker. So I just want to go on record. Nobody else has to agree with that, but it's absolutely ridiculous. So Jason, has the Lignite PAC taken a position on this race? Is this a race that the Lignite PAC endorses on? I don't know what your process is generally, if it's called an endorsement or if you just give money, or sort of where are you guys at on this race?
So traditionally, Lignite PAC lets the primary process play out. In North Dakota, truth is, the average Republican is going to be this place regarding coal. The average Democrat is going to be this place regarding coal. And we haven't really played in the primaries very much because by and large, there's just not a lot of differentiation. But on this issue, because of the critical nature of the coal industry right now, the challenges we are facing, I think both candidates are seeing this is a time to stand up for the coal industry. But Julie's been standing up for 10 years. That's why Lignite PAC has consistently supported her in this race. That's why our state PAC has consistently supported her when she's running for PSC. And again, our Lignite PAC doesn't typically endorse candidates, but this is a choice where we have to be clear that we do support Julie for this, because the facts have been muddied so much. We have to come in and say, wait a minute, if you care about coal, Julie has a record stretching back more than 10, 11, 12 years of standing up for the industry. And we know that's where she's going to be in the future.
So that's I mean, because it surprised me when Becker said that about Julie, and it surprised me that he was choosing to attack her on an issue that's so squarely in her wheelhouse. I mean, say whatever else you want about Julie Fedorchak, she knows energy policy very well, chapter and verse, and the idea that she's anti-coal is so easily. I mean, it's why I wanted to have you on. I also wanted to bring clarity to this issue, because I think it's an unfortunate distortion of her record. I don't think the Sierra Club thinks that Julie Fedorchak is promoting their agenda all that well. So let me talk a little bit about, one area, is carbon capture, and I know that's been something that's been talked a lot about. I know that your industry is generally supportive of it. I think a lot of the debate that's taking place in North Dakota is around one project, the Summit Carbon Pipeline project, which really doesn't have anything to do with your industry. But generally you guys are supportive of, hey, this is a way that we can make coal and oil and gas and agriculture and construction and everything else better. Former State Representative Rick Becker, who wants to be a U.S. representative, is been very critical of carbon capture. Julie Fedorchak is generally supportive of it. I mean, did that figure in? I mean, those positions factor into your decision on this?
Certainly the history of support and leadership on carbon capture is one of the things that we've talked about with Julie. And the way that when he was a state representative, Rick Becker approached carbon capture is part of his record too. I don't want to spend a lot of time attacking the things that he did, but he has never been supportive of the technologies, the research and development technologies that are necessary for the Lignite Council to meet its regulatory challenges and to create economic opportunities in the future. And, he did come to the office a couple of days ago, and we had what I thought was a good conversation about our position on this and his position where he had been. But at the end of the day, carbon capture is an economic opportunity for North Dakota that also happens to be a tool for regulatory compliance. And we can't let that regulatory compliance piece distract us from the trillions of dollars of wealth that are underground, ready to be unlocked by carbon capture technology. That's the opportunity that Julie has seen from day one and has been a part of trying to bring to pass through a common sense regulatory regime.
Jason, you and I have talked about the importance of the coal industry to things like, public schools and infrastructure and all those kind of things. Are you at all concerned about, like Rob said, you guys have nothing to do with this pipeline that's so controversial, but there has to be some sort of repercussions to your industry in terms of CO2 and people wanting to do CO2 capture in the future. How are you handling, or what did you learn from the Summit pipeline on what maybe your industry can do better than what they did in terms of making sure that CO2 carbon capture has a future in our state?
I think, number one, it's part of an ever-evolving process that, we will learn from what they did. They will then learn from what we did. The people who come after us will learn from that process. And I think what we've learned, what I have said I've learned, is the importance of understanding what people's concerns are very early in the process. And one of those things is safety and how this technology will impact the safety of neighborhoods. We can do a better job of talking about the safety aspect. This is proven technology. We've been doing it in North Dakota since the year 2000, and it's the safest pipeline technology in use today. So those are things that we haven't really focused on those before. And I think this experience has changed the way we look at it. And I know that Summit has also made changes to how they're operating to be responsive to those same concerns as well. So it is definitely a learning process, and we need to do a better job of engaging with the public at all levels, not just at the North Dakota State Capitol.
One of the things when Rick Becker was in his Mulvaney ad, and he's certainly been touting to as a way to I guess burnish his coal credentials, is he has touted an endorsement from someone he describes as the co-chair of the Congressional Coal Caucus. It's U.S. Representative Dan Meuser, Meuser, M-E-U-S-E-R. I don't know how to pronounce it. He is from Pennsylvania, which is obviously a coal state. But had you folks ever heard of this person before?
I mean, we know who the Coal Caucus is. It's just the North Dakota lignite coal industry stands alone. It is on top of the heap when it comes to research and development technologies and development of new economic opportunities. While, the Coal Caucus has been active in Washington, D.C. on some of the regulatory issues, if you overlay the issues that they're working on versus the ones we are working on, it's not a one-to-one match. They work on the regulatory things, the carbon greenhouse gas regulations, and some of these other things. But we believe our future is in increasing the strength of the industry through research and development and solving those regulatory and commercial challenges. That really hasn't been the true focus of where that caucus has been. I don't want to imply that it's not helpful. There's a group of congressmen who are talking about coal issues in Washington, D.C. I don't care if they're from Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia. They are on the right side of the issues, but they don't talk about lignite-specific issues. We are so different from their coal that we might as well be talking about the natural gas caucus. That's how different we are.
Jason, obviously the lignite industry employs a lot of people in this state and a lot of voters in this state. What are you all doing to make sure that the people who are working in this industry understand that Julie Fedorchak is better for the industry they work in than the other candidates? I mean, you've obviously made the decision that Julie's the best candidate here, but how are you getting that message out? I mean, it's one thing to give a check to Julie, but it's another thing to make sure that the thousands of people who work in your industry know about it.
I think that's still one of the things that we're trying to understand is how do we get that message out? The good news is we have been engaged with the workforce on regulatory challenges. We've got our website, Fight the EPA, or lignite.com/fight the EPA, and we've been talking about those regulatory challenges. The workforce is engaged on the regulatory front, and quite frankly, we're not expecting the coal industry to be thrust front and center into this campaign. Now that it is, I think those 13,000 workers are going to wake up and say, wait a minute, who am I going to vote for? And we're providing the information through venues like this to remind them of where Julie has been on these issues. So I think you'll see more outreach from us on those types of issues, but the work that we are doing to solve regulatory challenges has already created a more engaged workforce and a more politically active workforce. It would not surprise us to see increased voter turnout in those counties in the upcoming election cycle.
You said that this was a critical moment for coal, and I agree. And then we also talked about how lignite coal in North Dakota is very different. I mean, as different as maybe oil and natural gas in terms of, the policies and the challenges and whatnot, as opposed to coal, a bituminous coal from other parts of the country or anthracite or what have you. North Dakota has one member of the House of Representatives. What do you want to see from that member in terms of helping your industry?
Continued support for research and development. That is critical to be able to continue to work with Department of Energy and create new research and development opportunities. The second one is to push back against the regulatory challenges that we're facing, to lead on resolutions of disapproval, to make sure that the record that is being created by Congress supports the lawsuits that we are being filed. And by the way, Julie Fedorchak is writing resolutions and declarations for lawsuits on behalf of the state to support the industry and to support the state's rights as it comes to regulating its own resources. But a House member has to be proactive in reaching out and finding those areas of common ground and being able to take a stand and say, we've had enough. It is time to turn to stop the being taken advantage of. And that's where we are right now on turning this over to the courts, and where Julie has been an instrumental part of that. But as a member of Congress, you need to be able to support the opportunities that we see and fight the challenges that we are engaging on.
So, Jason, we've talked quite a bit on this podcast about Becker being about clicks and social media and that kind of stuff, more than actual policy. So when he was in the North Dakota legislature, was he a legislator that the coal industry would go to get things done, to lead on things, to get more dollars for research and development for your industry, or not?
Well, we had a group of legislators that we would go to for those types of things, and he was not in it. And, I know he had his own priorities, and I think I don't want to put words into his mouth, but he knew what he wanted to accomplish. And those coal research and research and development priorities were never on that list. So it wasn't like we went asking him and were turned down. We had a list of legislators who we knew would be on our side and who we knew would be supportive of these priorities.
Jason, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
The cold cases you see at the Vault have captivated readers across our region for years. At the Vault podcast, our team of professional reporters takes you further into those stories with new interviews from family members, investigators, and experts. Check out The Vault at inforum.com/The Vault and subscribe to The Vault wherever you find your podcasts.
Okay, welcome back. Just finished up with Jason Bohrer. And I mean, the uptake, I think, from that is that Rick Becker made a mistake in taking Julie Fedorchak on that front. I during the break, I kind of made a joke to you that, like, if I want to take Shaquille, if I want to beat Shaquille O'Neal or at something, I don't challenge him to a basketball game, right? I challenge him to checkers or something that maybe he's not so good at.
I would go chess. But...
Maybe he's great at checkers too. I don't know. Or chess. I have no idea. But you know what I mean? I'm not gonna try to play to his strong suit. I just attacking Julie Fedorchak on coal is, first of all, so central to her area of policy expertise, and also is also so demonstrably wrong.
Yeah, and she's got a track. I mean, I thought your point about, do you think the Sierra Club thinks that she's been pushing a green agenda in North Dakota? The answer to that is no. I mean, yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, you've got the coal industry has two options. I mean, both of them are obviously going to be supportive of the coal industry, but one's an expert and is going to be able to lead and bring people together, and the other is Rick Becker.
Well, that's right. And also, I mean, that's part of, Lignite doesn't normally endorse, and now they just endorsed here on the show. So that's news. I mean, that's going to be my headline for this podcast when I write about it. That's news, and what a mistake by Rick Becker. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we leave is there is a rising tide of money that is now flowing into this House race. We got the Club for Growth, which is a national group. The Win It Back PAC, which I believe is affiliated with the Club for Growth in some way. Club for Growth is running attack ads on Fedorchak. Win It Back PAC is running ads, casting Becker as a border security desperado. It's really interesting to me. I mean, but what really jumps out at me is you have these, Washington, D.C. based groups, whether it's Senator Ron Paul's Protect Freedom PAC, the Win It Back PAC, Club for Growth. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Rick Becker, out of his own campaign, has spent $141,000. I mean, he is really reliant on the right now at this moment in time on, and again, we're in prime time. I mean, this is the stretch. This is the home stretch into Election Day. He is right now relying on Washington, D.C. money for these ads.
Yeah. And Rob, one of the questions I have for you is Club for Growth. I mean, they used to be like a pro-business, sort of more traditional, like Pat Toomey, whatever. So when I heard that they're spending all this, I didn't know what side they were on.
Things have changed.
And it's sort of disappointing to see that they're on Becker's side on this thing, because it's, what I know about Club for Growth is Julie seems like the perfect candidate for them. Small government, pro-business, have they completely turned into sort of the Freedom Caucus sort of thing?
They feuded kind of famously with Donald Trump early on in the transition to MAGAism in the Republican Party, but they made up earlier this year, and I suspect that although it's really interesting, one of the things with and I sent you this link to the blog, the Gateway Pundit blog, which is first of all, I mean, very conspiratorial, like very ultra mega, but also very popular with that crowd. And they put a post up about Becker using Dylan Mulvaney, and blasted him for it. I mean, their headline was North Dakota Rhino candidate for U.S. Congress teams up with trans activist Dylan Mulvaney. So I don't know how to. And here's another quote from later in their post. It says Fedorchak is endorsed by Representative Elise Stefanik and Governor Doug Burgum, two strong allies of President Trump. Becker touts the endorsements of Representative Bob Good, Representative Tom Massey, and Chip Roy, who all supported Governor Ron DeSantis in his failed bid to stop Trump from becoming president again. So the dynamics of these politics are so weird. I kind of throw my hands up in the air. I don't know why Club for Growth is choosing Becker, and it doesn't break down easily along MAGA lines. And there is an argument where I'm hearing rumblings that Trump might actually get into this race and endorse Fedorchak, which would be interesting. And I mean, everybody knows, looking at that from a strictly political perspective, I don't think anybody on this podcast needs to be reminded of my personal feelings about Donald Trump, but Trump endorsing Fedorchak probably helps in this situation, helps her.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it would be interesting if the Club for Growth is spending $800,000 or whatever supporting Becker, and then if Trump comes in and endorses Fedorchak, I mean, again, like I can't figure out who's on whose side in a race like this. Yeah. But what I do know is, it just doesn't make any sense to me on who's whose side. And it's 3 weeks before, right? And I think you and I have talked about it. I mean, the question I have is, can Rick Becker get over 30%? I've yet to see any polling that shows him over 30%. I think Julie's going to get north of 30. I don't know how much.
We've both seen with the DFM poll. Fedorchak was one behind. I've seen other polling where she's ahead, not huge leads, but
the one thing that's consistent is his number in all of those polling. It's right below 30.
That was a hypothesis that I think we've been talking about. Other political observers I respect have been talking about, is that Becker has a high floor and a low ceiling, meaning he may be trapped at that 30% because he's obviously got a base of really enthusiastic supporters. But outside of them, because he's so polarizing, he struggles to bring new people into his coalition. Now,
and I think another thing that popped into my head when you made me aware of this Club for Growth thing is the property tax measure. If all of a sudden Rick Becker is the Republican nominee in the state, and if this thing gets on the ballot, all of a sudden he has some juice to bring in millions of dollars to try to pass that property tax thing. And all of the Republican elected officials and all the interest groups that want to see that thing go down, I mean, that's a chancy proposition of Rick Becker be the Republican nominee in this state and have access to those national groups coming in on this property tax.
It's going to be interesting. The question right now is, Becker's clearly not going to spend his own money. I mean, he donated, he touted having raised $820,000. more than 2/3 of that, 550 million or 550,000, I should say, were money he loaned his own campaign. He has not shown a willingness to spend his own money in his campaign. Now, I don't know in the week since we had the last report, I don't know how much additional money he's raised, but the degree to which he's leaning on these outside groups to come in and kind of do his dirty work on TV for him is I mean, that's a remarkable thing.
Well, and he consistently has this cynical view of politics. I mean, we've talked about how his people are the people who got Charlotte Moore signatures to be on the ballot because wanted another woman. It's my understanding he's the one that his people got Roland Reimers on the ballot on the Democrat side to limit the amount of crossover votes. You know, he's now done this weird cameo thing. He's done this thing where he gives all this money to his campaign to bump up his numbers to get some national headlines and then just takes all the money back. I mean, it's just this sort of cynical one thing after another effort to confuse people into voting for him or to create an illusion of things that aren't factually accurate. And it's I mean, here's the deal. I think the Club for Growth ads, the cameo thing, and then there's a group that sent out text messages on behalf of the Fedorchak campaign. I don't even know who that group
hold on. It wasn't on behalf of the Fedorchak campaign.
Oh, it was an independent expenditure to make people aware, like to go after Becker. Yep, just to be clear. But it was to benefit her campaign.
Sure.
Even though she had nothing to do with it. It's independent. She can't have anything to do with it. That's bringing up this cameo thing. This campaign has officially gotten stupid. In the last 48 hours.
It's really unfortunate because I don't want to talk about Dylan Mulvaney in the context of North Dakota's House race. She's irrelevant. Like that's not an important factor. I don't really like these stunts. I mean, they're good things for me to write headlines about, I guess. I mean, they're very clicky, but I'd rather be writing about coal. I'd rather be writing about these issues that are vitally important to North Dakota. And we're not. One thing about the money, a lot of people are kind of, when I was sharing around some of the numbers I had collected about Club for Growth and so obviously Senator Paul's PAC and the Make It, Take It, or what is it? Make It. What's the other one?
Take It Back. Take It Back.
Win It Back. That's it. Obviously, I mean, at this point, I mean, their ad buys right now to this point in the cycle, the pro Becker ad buys are about double what Fedorchak has spent. And the one bit of context I would give is the 2018 Senate race. Heidi Heitkamp outspent Kevin Cramer by 4 times over. I mean, she quadrupled in direct campaign spending. In terms of outside spending in that race, the pro-Heitkamp, anti-Cramer spending was about $2 million more than the anti-Heitkamp, pro-Cramer spending. So money's not everything, I guess.
Well, but I also think there's a bit of the cake is right. I mean, it is pretty late in the cycle to try to define these folks. I mean, we saw in the governor's race where Kelly was able to define Tammy Miller 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, or whatever that was. The thinking group has been in the mail defining who Rick Becker is. I mean, I think sometimes you're trying to define your opponent. It's the person who gets out first who does the best job. With that being said, if I'm the Fedorchak camp, I don't love $800,000 or $1 million coming in being spent against me the last 3 weeks.
It's going to be a close race. There's no question about that. I mean, we'll see what happens on election day, but definitely.
I would just one last thing: if Balaz had resources and was running a more aggressive, competent campaign, you could see a situation here where Fedorchak and Becker are just sort of killing each other and a third candidate can come up. But I don't think Munn's position on abortion allows her to do that. And I don't think Balaz is running a strong enough campaign because, I mean, these guys are going to drive each other's negatives up super hard in the next 3 weeks.
They are.
But there's not a third candidate who's competitive.
If this was a head-to-head race between just Becker and Fedorchak, I think Fedorchak would be walking away with it right now. I think she'd be on a trajectory to win pretty handily. But instead it's a 5-way race, and that makes it a lot more complicated. I think if just Carl Munn wasn't in this race, I think you would probably see Fedorchak with a pretty comfortable lead. But
I don't know. I still think if it's a 3-person race and it's Balaz and those two are just killing each other, you could see a situation where It's like, I don't like either of these guys because they're doing this dumb stuff. But again, you have to have a third candidate who's strong and competent. And I mean, I think Balazs is competent. He's just not running a strong campaign.
Right. And by the way, I like Alex Balazs a lot, and I hope he sticks around. He interests me. The way he's run this campaign, he's said some interesting things and he's at times been a little too Trumpy for my taste, but he's an interesting person. My take on him has always been I'm not ready to hand North Dakota's only vote in the House of Representatives over to somebody I just don't know them.
Super, super strong legislative or down ballot statewide candidate.
There you go.
No candidate.
All right, we're going to put a pin in it there. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk again.